In many people's eyes, Tom Aspinall is the most talented heavyweight of all time.
I think he beats Jon Jones if that comes up. And I think he dominates the heavyweight division for quite some time, and he will retire as the greatest heavyweight champion that the UFC has ever seen.
Despite this, he's only the interim champion, and a shot at the undisputed title that should be guaranteed isn't coming easily.
Jon is just sitting on the sidelines with the belt.
And now there's a fear that Jon Jones won't ever give Aspinall the title fight.
There's no way on earth that he's going to fight me. Not a chance. I will retire Jon Jones without even fighting him.
So just how did Tom Aspinall become the most unique heavyweight fighter of all time? Will he get a chance to take on Jon Jones? Or will that shadow loom over his career forever? For Tom Aspinall, it all began in the garage of his house back in Atherton, Greater Manchester.
From a good family. My family are very good people. Working class. It's a working class area. People, blue collar area. People work in garages, as plumbers, in factories, that kind of shit. Not lawyers, doctors, not that kind of place. Not that kind of corporate place. It's more, you work in a garage, you work in a factory, you work as a plumber, electrician, you sell drugs, that kind of stuff. Normal, blue collar, smallish town person stuff.
With his father, Andy Aspinall, being a student of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and opening his own school in 2005, Tom grew up on the mats through his teenage year.
I just started off training with the adults when I was a kid.
2005 maybe we moved here, so Tom was, I don't know, smaller then.
My dad's a bit of a wacky guy. Everyone who meets him just loves him.
I was an IT manager, took redundancy. I wanted to get out of the rat race anyway, but I realised then he could be good enough to do some kind of combat sport. When he left school, he was probably as big as me at 16. He probably grew 7 or 8 inches in a year. We trained 3 or 4 afternoons, either on this space in the floor or on the flags outside.
What my dad means to me in terms of fighting. Like, he's literally took me to my first ever martial arts session, and he's quite literally been at every session since. Literally. Near enough, like, obviously he's missed a few sessions here and there, but near enough, literally every session he's been there. And yeah, my 100% trust is in him. Like, if it wasn't for him, I would never have even considered stepping foot in a gym or training.
He had tried some striking, some wrestling, and won plenty of BJJ tournaments, but mixed martial arts wasn't on his radar yet. That all changed though when Aspinall was around 15, and his father used Liverpool's Team Kyobon gym for its mat space. Its owner Colin Heron asked Tom's father to teach BJJ to his students, and in exchange would teach Tom MMA, and the rest was history. Within a couple of years, Aspinall was sparring UFC fighters like Terry Etam, despite still being a kid.
When Tom was 14, 15, he'd then already be sparring with someone like Terry Etam, who's in the UFC.
I would be on the mat like starstruck, and I'd just be like a big young kid trying to get involved. But I must have been probably about 16, 17 when I even started like landing any kind of punches on these guys and maybe winning the odd round like here and there in sparring.
Although it definitely helped that from the age of 16 to 17, Tom grew from his dad's modest height of 5'8" to the imposing 6'5" heavyweight he is today. Funnily enough, the growing pains were so severe that the Aspinall family thought something could be wrong and took Tom to physiotherapists, doctors, and had MRI scans done. And maybe all those years of training while being relatively small made Tom Aspinall the quick, agile heavyweight he is today. As an amateur and regional fighter, things were unsurprisingly easy for Aspinall. In fact, he made such short work of his opponents that no one wanted to fight him.
There's just not a lot of like active heavyweights, so it's difficult to get fights. People want to protect their records. Yeah, it was just a tough time.
Without a fight for over 2 years, and without an income, Tom Aspinall was essentially broke. At certain points, he was down to just the equivalent of $25 US.
Eventually, he packed in MMA.
I had absolutely no money. Sometimes I had to like lend money off my dad to go and put fuel in the car to go to the gym.
Me and his mum sat him down and we lent him money, we helped him out. Lots of arguing and crying and please give it a go and see how you get on.
And when the news hit that his partner was pregnant with twins, Aspinall was set on giving up MMA forever.
There was a few tough times, especially because I got 3 children. And especially like when my twins came along. Like twins is a big, like having 3 kids by the time you're 25 with no money, it puts like obviously a lot of pressure on. my wife, she's very believing in me as well, which is great, because if she started complaining about it, I would have to go and get a proper job. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot of people around us and stuff, like family members and friends, who were like thinking I was like very irresponsible and telling me that I need to you know, start looking at providing for my family and stuff and get a proper job and stuff like that. But like I say, luckily I had like my mum and dad in my ear being like, no, don't do it, keep doing what you're doing.
It was during this time he considered going all in on boxing in order to support his family.
It's time to learn the trade now. I've been doing MMA for a long time. I've been struggling to make it pay financially and just not getting many rewards from it because I'm struggling to get fights. So it's time to switch over and do the boxing. I've gelled with Peter well. My MMA coach Colin has taught me a lot when it comes to boxing, but it's time to learn just the art of boxing now. So first day switched over.
But in the end, his family convinced him to stick it out a little longer because they knew just how much potential Aspinall had. He signed to Cage Warriors, and after 2 fights and 2 first-round finishes, Tom Aspinall got the call every MMA fighter dreams of, and from then on, no one could stop him. Within just a couple of years, Aspinall had climbed the UFC heavyweight ranks and blitzed everyone in his path. Only a seasoned veteran like Andrei Arlovsky could survive more than a few minutes in the octagon with him. But Aspinall wasn't your regular heavyweight, with a big overhand and a questionable gas tank. With his movement, speed, power, and all-round game, Tom was like nothing we'd ever seen before.
He's kind of like the heavyweight division, you know, Demetrius Johnson, man. Or maybe not that quite, but we'll say maybe St. Pierre with even better technique, with even swifter striking.
They don't enter or contest the World Olympic Championships in England, not in wrestling. So it's always a surprise when they get a fighter that can come over. It could be Darren Till, it could be Michael Bisping, that can deal with wrestling. If you can just deal with wrestling, good enough. Good enough. Tom's different. He's employing, he's invoking the takedowns. And he's doing all of this while I'm telling you as clear as I know how to speak, this is what he's best at. But he's got these damn good ground skills. I think the reason he beat Orlovsky, and I think the reason he dominated Volkov, because they're just like everybody else. They didn't know he had that. They were not prepared for that.
And with heavyweight being a marquee yet shallow UFC division, he was fast-tracked to the top. He headlined UFC London in just his 5th fight and submitted Alexander Volkov with ease inside 4 minutes, which, funnily enough, was Aspinall's 4th longest fight of all time. The event was such a hit that Dana White brought the octagon back to London almost immediately.
We have so many options now, so many things we could do. That's why we're going to go home and I'm going to figure out immediately how to come back here. I don't know where we'll go or what we'll do yet, but like you just said, I have nothing but options.
Yet again, Aspinall was in the main event, and yet again the fight ended early. Only this time, it went horribly wrong as Tom went down in just 15 seconds, holding his knee and screaming in agony. It was an injury that had MMA fans questioning how Aspinall would look upon his return, and one that made Aspinall question if he'd ever return to the UFC at all. Tearing your MCL, meniscus, and damaging your ACL is up there with one of the worst injuries for an athlete, let alone a fighter who has to kick, absorb kicks, and more. It can be legitimately career-ending, and throughout the dark days of his rehabilitation, Aspinall even considered quitting MMA for good.
But I was supposed to go away for like 3 weeks after my fight. Yeah. But I only could go away for like a few days and then I had to come back and have surgery. I have my little kids running around wanting to do stuff and I'm just sat there with a massive swollen leg, just being like, what has just happened? You know what I mean? Like all the madness of a fight build up and everything, and obviously you think you're going to be coming off a big win and that, don't you? Yeah. And I always think, oh, I'll have a nice bonus and I'll be able to chill for the rest of the summer. I'm going to be on holiday for 3 weeks. Yeah, the mental aspect wasn't great.
How dark did it get? I mean, did you think there was a potential that you would never fight again? Really?
To be honest, for a few days I didn't even know if I wanted to fight again, to be honest. It was really tough for me, mate. As a professional athlete, but not only as an athlete, just as a man, as a human being, it's hard to not be able to walk, mate, when you especially because I've just come off the back of a massive training camp. So I've been dead active, I've been all over the place, and then, right, you've lost your fight, there's loads of people seeing it, you've injured your knee, there's people saying all kinds of stuff, and you're sat there, mate, with a big busted up leg, all cut open, with a wrap on it, with your leg up, you're in loads of pain, and you can't move.
Having dedicated his entire life to mixed martial arts though, he persevered through. But there were major question marks from fans, analysts, and maybe even himself as to what he'd look like upon his return. After all, the clearest thing that separates Aspinall from all the other heavyweights is his speed and movement. Without it, he just may not be the same electrifying fighter we're used to seeing. But in the end, Aspinall actually thinks having that knee surgery was a blessing in disguise.
People say like, well, why did you fight with a bad knee? But that bad knee has been
bad for years.
Mate, I've had that since before I was in the UFC.
Yeah.
So I've always been like training around it and stuff. And actually, the last camp, and I thought, Blades, it felt really strong. But it does this thing occasionally where like it locks up. Well, it did do. It's fixed now. I've had surgery on it. But it used to like lock up. So sometimes, to be honest, it never really happened with a kick before. I think I'm like 4 months post-surgery now. I'm doing stuff now that I've literally not been able to do for years. Like I can grapple on it properly. I can do loads of one-legged stuff and that, which I've not been able to do. So.
And almost exactly a year to the date, in the exact same building, Aspinall made his return as the headliner, and UFC fans got an emphatic answer when he got the knockout in just over a minute. All those question marks were thrown out the window. Aspinall was back like he'd never been gone. Fans were immediately calling for a title shot. But the division was in this weird state of limbo. The undisputed champion Jon Jones was waiting for a fight with the old heavyweight great Stipe Miocic. But when Jones tore his pectoral muscle just 2 weeks before the fight was supposed to go down at UFC 295, Tom Aspinall was offered the most dangerous fight in the entire UFC, Sergei Pavlovich.
Pavlovich is the most dangerous, to be honest. I think he's the most dangerous guy in the UFC. I think, to be honest, it's fucking the most dangerous situation you can have. Fighting the most dangerous guy in the UFC on 2 weeks' notice, but I'm willing to put it all on the line. Do you know what I mean? This is my absolute dream, and fucking, I'm doing a Bisping, aren't I? Bisping took it on 2 weeks' notice. Bisping did it on 2 weeks' notice and won against Rockhold, so why can't I do it?
The Russian was 18 and won with 6 first-round knockout victories in a row, which was the all-time UFC record for consecutive first-round knockouts. Both men were taking the fight on 17 days' notice. But when an interim title is on the line, it's a tough proposition to turn down. Most fans believed for Aspinall to win, he couldn't stand and bang with Pavlovich, and clearly he agreed.
He can get all the training partners in the world that he wants, but you can't replicate a guy like me in the gym. And also, I'm not going to stand in the middle of the cage and have a shootout with him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to have a measuring competition with him. Both literally and figuratively, because he'll probably win both. You know what I mean? So we're going to. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens, mate.
But when the two giants went toe-to-toe, neither took a back step, and it took Tom Aspinall just 1 minute to knock out the knockout artist. What we didn't know, though, was that Aspinall was actually semi-injured going into the fight.
I basically didn't have any training camp at all. I wasn't really in the best shape. I got the call like 3-4 days after. I pulled my back really bad. I couldn't barely even move or do anything. And yeah, it's been some, and I didn't have a visa as well. It's been some 3 weeks, let me tell you. It's been absolutely insane.
So pre-fight at the press conference, I loved what you said. Like, I knew that, I couldn't win this thing by sitting on the couch. So I said yes. But given all the circumstances that you were facing, like, was there any part of you inside that was like, this is dumb? Like, I probably shouldn't be doing this.
Yep. That was my exact thoughts when I was sat in the locker room tonight. I was like, what am I doing?
And with the win, it was now Aspinall with all the UFC records next to his name. Shortest average fight time in UFC history, largest striking differential in UFC history, least bottom time in UFC history, and already joined third for the most performance bonuses in UFC history. The final hurdle for the new interim heavyweight champion was to fight the winner of Jones versus Miocic, get the win, and be crowned the greatest heavyweight of all time. But of course, that's not how it's played out. Instead of waiting around for Jones and Miocic, Tom Aspinall decided to do something incredibly rare and defend his interim title. Back in Manchester, it was another 1-minute finish, and Tom got to exercise his demons against Curtis Blades. So surely now Aspinall gets a shot to unify the titles, right? Well, I wouldn't be so sure of anything when Jon Jones is involved.
I'm not getting my credit for it. They're holding the belt hostage, mate, and Jon Jones is loving it.
Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones is undoubtedly the fight that the vast majority of MMA fans want to see. It's the greatest of all time against the young lion looking to be the best heavyweight of all time.
We're going to do this thing.
I would hope so.
I would love to, man.
I would hope so.
Respect, man.
All the best.
Respect.
All the best.
We'll do a quick picture.
Sure.
Yeah?
Let's get it.
A face-off.
No,
Just
no.
okay. No problem. No problem.
That's great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
I would love to have the honour one day. I would love to have the honour.
Maybe one day.
Hope so, man. All the best. All the best. How's everything?
It's healing. So slowly but surely.
Okay. All the best, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, man. Thanks for letting me come up. Thank you.
Outside of that 12-6 elbow DQ, no one has beaten Jones, and many think Aspinall could be the guy to do it. But instead, we're getting Miocic. While it's still a huge fight, many MMA fans can't help but feel it's come too late in their careers.
Why are you giving a guy who's 42, however old he is? I mean, I completely understand, mate. I have the utmost respect for Stipe and what he's done in his career. And Jon Jones, on the contrary to what people might think. Respect them guys more than I can even put into words. But they don't fucking deserve to be fighting for the heavyweight title. Them guys are not the top of the heavyweight division right now. Let's not, Dana White and everybody else can say whatever they want. Them guys aren't the best heavyweights in the world right now. And I'm not saying that they've not had amazing careers, because I idolise them guys. I want to have a career like that. That's what I'm aiming to do with my life, is what they've done. But they're not the best right now. Right now, they're definitely not the best. So let's stop talking all this bullshit like they are.
He is 42 years old and hasn't won in 4 years. And outside of Cyril Gane, Jones hasn't won since 2020 either. And regardless of the outcome between the two, there's a fear amongst fans that both men will retire anyway.
He beats Stipe. We are going to have to deal with, hey John, are you retired? Like, we're going to have to deal with that to some degree. We're going to get an answer of no, but when Dana says I would be surprised if John didn't fight Aspinall, there's a little bit more to it, where Dana is letting us know if John gets done with Stipe and would like to fight here again, that is the fight. That is the one that he will be offered.
Considering the many Twitter rants Jones has gone on, not once has he said he'll be fighting Aspinall next.
Jon Jones, he was praying that I would lose that fight against Curtis Blades, mate. Praying that I would. Because there is nowhere that you can find publicly, nowhere, him saying that he will fight me. It doesn't exist. I challenge anybody watching this interview to go and find a statement, a quote, a video where Jon Jones is saying that he'll fight me after he's fought Stipe. It doesn't exist. The guy's smart. And mate, the guy, we know he's a bit overweight these days. The guy was sat there, mate, with the Cheeto fingers or whatever, the Doritos on his fingers, with his iPhone in hand, waiting for me to get knocked out so he can start tweeting about it. Let's be honest. And since I won that fight, he's gone completely quiet, and he'll continue to go completely quiet about me until he retires, because there's no way on earth that he's going to fight me. Not a chance. I will retire Jon Jones without even fighting him.
Perhaps on paper beating Miocic is bigger for Jones's legacy than Aspinall. Or maybe he's wise enough to know fighting Tom is far riskier than an old, rusty legend. Not to mention he's much older, isn't an active fighter, and has very little experience at heavyweight. John's only fight was against Cyril Gane, whom he had a huge wrestling advantage over, which likely won't be the case for Aspinall. The sad thing is though, despite how much fans are begging to see it, neither men truly need to fight against one another. Jones's legacy is cemented already, and Aspinall can go down as the best heavyweight of all time, without ever facing Jones. But it's still the biggest fight at heavyweight, without a shadow of a doubt. And will it ever happen? I think only Jon Jones knows the answer to that question. And speaking of Jon Jones, while he's made some well-documented mistakes in his personal life, none were enough to land him on the list of the top 5 most notorious criminals in UFC history. So if you want to see who did make the list, check out my previous video.